Today's film strip is on safety and sanitation in handling food.
Salmonella, botulinum, Staphylococcus, Clostridium perfringens. You don't feel good. Your stomach is upset, or you've got abdominal cramps, or diarrhea, or all three. Maybe it's a headache. Do you brush it off as being just another bug that's going around? In a way, you're right. The symptoms of your illness can be caused by any number of bugs or bacteria. What you may not know is that many illnesses are caused by harmful bacteria in foods, and that you can do something to prevent them.
4 common germs that cause food poisoning are Salmonella, Clostridium botulinum, Staphylococcus, and Clostridium perfringens.
You don't have to know how to pronounce those words to know that they can do harm to you. I'm doing a lot of the chopping and cooking for my family, so I found out that even though those names are complicated, the bacteria they identify are very simple one-celled germs.
Remember that demonstration at school when we put a piece of meat in that culture? And then we put the culture in a warm place. Well, I didn't believe it then, but the teacher said that those things had lots of one-cell germs.
That multiply by dividing. In the demonstration at school, we added a little heat to make the germs grow faster. The same bacteria we grew in those cultures at school are everywhere. In the air, often on your hands, and even in some foods. These germs can divide and multiply almost as fast in the warmth, food, and moisture provided in our kitchens. You see, under favorable conditions to them, the germs grow. One germ in 24 hours can produce 281 trillion other one-celled germs, each one capable of doing the same. Notice the little colony of germs starting to grow around that piece of meat.
Simple one-celled? Sure, times 281 trillion. That isn't so simple in my book. I'd say the odds are definitely against us.
Not really. Common sense prevention will keep you fine. Remember, even though there are all those germs, there are also about 200 million Americans eating about 220 trillion meals a year, and almost all of them don't get food poisoning. But just from salmonella poisoning alone, there are an estimated 2 million cases of illness every year.
I still don't like those odds. How do I stay out of the 2 million category?
Well, the first thing you've got to remember is temperature control. Yeah, 40 to 140. Those germs really love to grow in temperatures in between 40 degrees Fahrenheit and 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, that's 4 degrees Celsius and the normal refrigeration temperature, the spread of germs is prevented. And above 140 degrees Fahrenheit, that's 60 degrees Celsius and the temperature at which we start to cook food, the bacteria are killed.
That's easy enough. Keeping the food cold keeps the germs from multiplying, and cooking food kills the germs.
Right, but you have to be extra careful when you handle the food, whether it's hot or cold. Like wash your hands. Always wash your hands before you begin to prepare food. Wash them after you use the toilet or your handkerchief, every time. Don't forget, bacteria are everywhere, and food itself has enough bacteria in it without you adding more with your hands. I'm talking about how you can add germs to your food by cross-contamination. For instance, by rubbing your hands across your hair, bits of the hair can get on your hands. The bacteria on your hair is then transferred by your hands to the food you're preparing. You're not only going to have to be careful of the food itself, but also of exactly how you go about handling the food.
All right, so I'll wash. That ought to be simple enough to remember. Washing your hands will go a long way in preventing food poisoning.
It's so simple. Most people forget or don't pay any attention to it.
And then comes those Latin diseases. Salmon... Well, staph.
Don't worry. Just call it food poisoning and infection. If you practice temperature control
40 to 140.
and always wash your hands, then you've taken a big step to stopping the growth of germs and getting you, your family, and your friends sick.
Following these simple rules in the home will definitely help keep you out of the 2 million illnesses a year category. Prevention of food disease has come a long way since the Middle Ages, when entire communities were wiped out due to foodborne illness. In 1784, Massachusetts enacted the first general food law in the United States. On June 30th, 1906, both the Food and Drug Act and the Meat Inspection Act were passed. They came as the result of shocking disclosures of unsanitary conditions in meatpacking plants, the use of poisonous preservatives and dyes in foods, and cure-all claims for worthless and dangerous patent medicines. The government can and is doing everything it can to regulate the food industry, but it cannot be in every home as a watchdog for every meal. That's the individual's responsibility.
How will I know that I've got food poisoning? What are the symptoms?
Well, when you don't feel good, you might think you're coming down with a cold or the flu. If your stomach is upset, or you have abdominal pains, diarrhea, or perhaps a headache, they could be coming from the big four.
The Latin losers.
You got it, and your responsibility starts in the food market.
Well, how would I know which kinds of food require refrigeration?
Watch out for perishable food products, including potentially hazardous food. The potentially hazardous foods are those that consist in whole or in part of milk or milk products, eggs, meat, poultry, fish, and shellfish. They also include things like cream pies, custards, potato salad, and meat salads like tuna or chicken. All these kinds of foods have to be kept refrigerated.
That's stuff I eat every day. How do I keep reminding myself?
You should always be aware of basic rules when you're buying, like making sure that the frozen foods you buy are kept below the frost line. That's the line you see in the cabinet that indicates the safety level. Don't buy any food in containers, cans, or packages that are outdated, broken, bent, or leaky.
So I'll be careful in the market, but it won't hurt if I make a mistake. I've got a good nose for spoiled food. I've also got a patented taste test, my own way of doing it. Who's to know the difference?
Don't even try it. If you think there's something wrong and then taste it, 1 million poisonous germs could leap into your body. Anything you think might be spoiled, just avoid completely. Especially be careful of bulging cans. That's a telltale sign of botulism. Of the 4 kinds of food poisoning, botulism is the one that could possibly kill you.
Great.
But don't worry. The government has practically eliminated the threat of botulism through commercially canned foods. Only 5 deaths from botulism in canned foods have been reported since 1925. But if you're home canning, the risk is considerably higher. Always consult your health department on the proper procedure for home canning. 700 people have died from this kind of botulism since 1925.
Okay, no bulging cans, and nobody in my family does home canning, but I will tell my friends. Now, what do I do with the food once I get it home?
Practice temperature control. Put the perishable foods in the refrigerator just as soon as you get home. It also helps to try to make the food market your last stop on the way home.
Because keeping the food cold keeps the germs from multiplying.
Right. And make sure the refrigerator is clean and the foods are placed in such a way as to allow proper circulation of the cool air.
And ice cream goes in the freezer.
Right, Sherlock. But not just because you don't want it to melt, but because frozen foods must be kept at temperatures below freezing to prevent the growth of spoilage organisms.
What about the actual cooking?
First, remember not to thaw frozen food at room temperature. Use the refrigerator. That's because there are bacteria everywhere, even in the air, and room temperatures make them grow. If you don't have time to thaw frozen foods in the refrigerator compartment, thaw them in a watertight plastic bag submerged in cold water. When you cook the food,
After I've washed my hands.
right, use high temperatures. Extreme heat kills the germs, especially with milk, milk products, eggs, meat, poultry, fish, and shellfish. And cleanliness is the best defense against germs. Wash pots and pans with hot, soapy water and cutting boards. They're often neglected. They should be scrubbed with hot, soapy water, too, and then rinsed with chlorine bleach. And if you've got an open cut on your finger, don't let it come in contact with the food. Wash it carefully and cover it with a clean bandage or use rubber gloves.
I understand that. Do you do anything special about handling vegetables or fruit?
Wash thoroughly before using. Use several changes of water, or use running water. Whatever you prepare should be covered if you're not going to eat it right away. Remember, there are all those germs in the air. And never keep food more than 2 or 3 hours at room temperature.
Practice temperature control.
That's it. And when you're finished eating, put leftovers into the refrigerator as soon as the meal is over. Refrigerate them in small, shallow containers so they'll cool quickly.
Gee, seems like there's so many things to worry about, I may not even get around to eating. Let me see. 40 to 140, washing the vegetables, washing your hands, and watch what you buy.
Guarding against food contamination should not be a constant worry. Prevention is a matter of habit. And if safety in handling foods is practiced conscientiously, very soon you won't even be thinking about the steps that are necessary in safeguarding your health. Clean your hands before and after handling raw food. Wash thoroughly all cutting surfaces and utensils after each use. Put perishable and frozen foods in the refrigerator as soon as you get home after shopping. If you prepare foods ahead of time, put them in the refrigerator until you're ready to serve them. Don't leave leftover foods on the table, but store them in the refrigerator promptly. Keep your refrigerator at 40 degrees Fahrenheit or below. Don't let frozen foods thaw at room temperature. Defrost them in the refrigerator. It doesn't take much time, and you'll feel better for it.